David Alorka, Gareth A. Davies, the first inaugural Gaz and Dave show. Listen, this has been a long time coming, hasn't it, Gareth?
Far too long, David. It's been like a year in the making.
Listen, there's magic when me and you come together. So I'm glad that we finally decided to actually make it happen, to sit down and to have a real conversation. Well, we have real conversations anyway, don't we? But to actually record a real conversation surrounding a variety of topics, most notably today, boxing and the heavyweight division.
We're keeping it real on the heavyweight division. Look, we all want to see Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. There are obstacles in the way. There's the WBO mandatory. Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora have to fight. Anthony Joshua has to fight Kubrat Pulev. Tyson Fury has to have his trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder, but because of a pandemic outbreak with COVID-19, there's still so many things that are yet to be decided. And it's notably where the crowds can come into arenas. $17 million the gate was for the second Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight, and that's extraordinary money. And when you think about the money that Anthony Joshua brings in with every fight,
yep,
those fights need crowds. And even though everyone fantasizes about those fights even taking place behind closed doors, I can't see it. There's too much money on the line. You know, boxing's a sport, but it's also a business, and at that level it's huge. So there's so much unwritten still with those fights. There's so much to be decided, and the end game is we all want to see two fights between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, and I think it does decide the number one for now in the division.
For now, you know? Absolutely. I think I agree with you 100% on that. In terms of even like as you mentioned, financially, it doesn't make sense to not have crowds. But even in terms of how big and massive and how historic that fight would be for this current era of the heavyweight division, it can't be done behind closed doors. Like it warrants a crowd. It warrants it. The only thing that I'm going to ask here, is, as it looks like these two are on a clear collision course towards each other, right? Obviously, there's a couple of there's fights in the way that you mentioned, like Usyk, Chisora, mandatories and rematches to be done. But we've had like a lot of clear collision courses during our time in the heavyweight division that haven't transpired. So how likely do you believe that this fight's going to happen in 2021?
I think it will happen in 2021. I think we might even see two fights in 2021. But ideally, and I know that Anthony Joshua doesn't want to give up his 3 belts, but ideally they both bin the belts and they just fight each other, you know, because it doesn't need belts. It doesn't, because we know it almost doesn't need the belts, because we know that the winner of those two fights really does become the number one in the division. And there's so many questions unanswered about, you know, would Tyson Fury completely outbox Anthony Joshua? Would Anthony Joshua's power come through, and would he catch Tyson Fury? They're certainly, neither of them have fought, you know, for a long time, and it's coming up to the time when they should fight. They'll both had nearly a year out. You know, if you count February as, it's not really a year. But if Wilder and Fury do fight in February because they can't have crowds in December, it will have been a year for them, and it puts everything out of sequence. It's in sequence now for it to happen. And the thing is about the big heavyweight fights, it's not just an industry fight. It goes outside the industry. It goes into the mainstream. You know, Joshua and Fury is the biggest fight in British boxing history. There's no question about it. The biggest money, the biggest amount of attention. And what we can't have is a year from now still having this conversation about when are they going to fight.
That's what I'm saying, Gareth, because sometimes when that ends up happening, it ends up being a bit of fatigue surrounding the conversation. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you know, and people start losing hope in the fight. And they're not even just losing hope, but just like, yeah, whatever. I think the question I have for you then is, you know, it's definitely the biggest fight in British boxing history from that regard. But does it happen in Britain? You and I both know we'd like it to happen here, but does it happen? Or we speak about how these fighters have been out of the ring for practically a year by the time they fight. that's a lot of money lost on that perspective. We know that they can get a much greater site fee from other places in the world as well. From that regard, does the current COVID situation make it less likely to happen in Britain?
At the moment, yes. Today it does, but I think if things get relaxed through September and we see venues opening up in October, I think they'll really start planning for it. Remember the excitement around a couple of months ago when they announced that they had agreed to have 2 fights?
Yeah.
The reaction was almost like it's just about to happen. And yet they haven't agreed the terms of it yet. They've agreed they would fight, and that's progress. But there's so much up in the air for all of us at the moment. Every time we leave our homes with our masks, you know, I think we're in a really good era. I mean, I was fantasizing the other day about, could we have an 8-man tournament, you know, that could take place? Could a big investor come in and put $450 million into having Wilder, Usyk, maybe even Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz, Dillian White, Alexander Povetkin, and Fury and Joshua, all in a big tournament where we head towards, you know, deciding.
Heavyweight. Who rules boxing? Who rules the heavyweight division? And indeed, who rules boxing?
But is that a step backwards? Because should we just see Fury and Joshua fight twice? Yes, I think it can happen in the UK. And I think one of those fights really must happen in the UK. I mean, before COVID, we were saying how it would be really hard to get a ticket for Wembley Stadium for those 2 fighting. Like, they'd be like gold dust. They really would, and that's 90,000 people.
It's true.
And those guys are so wealthy now that they can almost afford, regardless of what they say on the surface, like Tyson Fury saying at the weekend, you know, grow a pair. You know, you should have fought Wilder, Anthony Joshua. You know, Joshua was on TV the week before when Dillian White was fighting. They're very much in our thoughts, but it's all talk for now. And I don't see that materializing until the kids are back in school, until there aren't COVID outbreaks in schools. And I think the government then will relax if there aren't outbreaks, they will relax numbers in venues, you know. I hope they do, because then I think we can move towards it. It's got to happen. It's a very frustrating situation. Remember, two years ago, we spent a whole 6 to 8 months of back and forth between Wilder and Joshua. Do you remember? Yeah. Should have happened.
Mate, listen, that's the craziest thing about it. It was like, that was before, even that was practically before. That was before Tyson Fury even made a comeback. There was so much. It's crazy how much has happened in such a small space of time. And how quickly boxing can move.
Well, I mean, I judge it on the length of your beard. Yeah. We've waited the length of your beard for that fight to take place, and I just hope it's not down to your navel by the time we see it.
Out here with a navel beard, you know, that is actually.
Maybe I shouldn't have my hair cut, and you shouldn't have your beard cut till this fight eventually happens, and then we just clean up.
I might have to just propose that to them, you know, to be honest. I might have to just go to AJ and tell him, listen, mate, I'm telling you, I'm needing a beard trim, but it's not happening until that fight's happening. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that'll get it underway. You know what I'm saying?
You never know. It's a strange world at the moment. And the thing is, as well, there's the debate about what happens in that fight. I mean, I see Fury as the winner, but that you cannot write off Anthony Joshua finishing anyone in a ring, because when he's got someone hurt, he will finish them, you know?
Absolutely. Do you know what it is? To be honest with you, both fighters, what impresses me about them both is their adaptability, their ability to change the way they fight. Obviously, Tyson's very, very slick and very, very
elusive,
very natural and elusive from that perspective.
But he also showed how he can take.
Yeah, exactly. So and I think both of them in their last fights showed that they can do something different that all of us didn't expect them to be able to do. So I think that's why this one to me is so incredibly intriguing from that perspective. I think a lot of people have Tyson Fury down as the favorite, but I wouldn't write off AJ in this at all, because he has shown that he is a very, very quick learner, that he adapts, and that he has a lot of punching power throughout his career.
Yeah, completely agree. You cannot write him off. I favour Tyson Fury to win the fight as well, but you cannot write. Anyone can have an off day. I mean, as we saw with Dillian White the other day against Alexander Povetkin, it takes one punch, particularly in the heavyweight division. 18 stone men knock each other out clean just with one punch from nowhere. And there's always the prospect of that from either man. So, you know, you've got to look at Tyson Fury's skills. He's shown it. And he's also got the cojones to do it as well. I mean, you know, to go in, look what he did coming back against Deontay Wilder. We were at both of those fights, and it was extraordinary. But yeah, it's almost like, you know, that fight is like the girl you'd like to see, but she's just not available all the time. She's just not available. It's just not happening. Look at the grin on your face.
I was like, listen, Gareth, I don't. That doesn't occur with me, mate. I'm joking. I'm playing.
But, look, finally on this, right? Lockdown has taught us a lot of things. I think is that you've got to sit back and look at things sometimes, but you've also got to take the opportunities when they're there, and you've got to be ready. Being ready is really important. Being prepared for change, and you know, I think that's one of the wise things that's come out of the pandemic lockdown is that get your ducks in a row, be prepared for change, and take each day as it comes, or each month as it comes. And I hope they do that. I hope they are doing that, and I think they are with this heavyweight scenario. You know, you know, it's. We may look back on this period and go, it's quite extraordinary, because you think in January we had Conor McGregor come back, and that was huge. In February we had Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. We had some other really big fights. It was a massive start to the year, and then everything ground to a halt in mid-March. And here we are, early September now, and the world's changed, you know, and maybe boxing has to change with it. You know,
yeah.
I think it's good that it's back, but we've just seen the first phase of it coming back. We saw one pay-per-view event that Eddie Hearn put on Fight Camp 4. But apart from that, they've been quite little cards, you know. There's so many fights to come that people are planning now for October, November, December, the two big heavyweight fights that Joshua and Fury are meant to have with the guys they're already scheduled to fight, which have been changed twice already. You know, Vasyl Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, that fight. Josh Taylor's got a fight coming up. There's so many, you know, Canelo's got a fight coming up against Yildirim, which I think is a terrible matchup. You know, he's a guy that got blasted out by Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. has had lockdown with Roy Jones Jr. How interesting is that? You know, so, you know, we are in a holding pattern. There's no doubt about it. The planes are not landing at the moment. They're just in that holding pattern. And, you know, and I just think that it's like all sports. Until the crowds return, until they find a way to do it, we're all in a holding pattern. You know, we're all in a holding pattern in our lives in a weird way.
But Gareth, we can't all just hold on forever, though. That's the thing about it. It's like, this is what I'm saying. It's like, I agree with you 100%, but I'm just sitting there just thinking, so, like worst case scenario, these guys are going to have to fight at some stage. Like, we can't, obviously we're all sitting there hoping for the best in this holding pattern, but you know, eventually the fuel's going to run out and planes are going to have to land. Eventually, these people are going to have to fight. So that worst case scenario contingency plan has gone. Look, we like similar to you. I want to be there. I'd love for like boxing, having boxing the way it has been. It's had a great sense of intrigue because you could hear more, you can see more. There's a lot more effects brought into it from that, which is incredible. But it's not the same thrilling, razzmatazz, you know how we do when we go to boxing events.
Yeah.
We dress up nicely to the nines. It's a beautiful day out. You know, you see people, you see friends within the industry, you see boxers. It's a beautiful environment or fraternity to be a part of. And so we all miss that from that regard. But the question is, if that best case scenario doesn't happen, we're stepping into a winter, into colder months now where people are going to catch colds. It's going to get colder. People are more afraid of people sneezing, people, coughing here and there. If the worst case scenario doesn't happen, how long can everybody, the big fights, just be hanging out for?
Well, as
everybody's getting older.
Yeah, as you say, with the analogy of fuel running out for the planes, that's why I'm jumping ahead and I'm asking the promoters and the boxers, are you actually prepared to fight behind closed doors if you have to? And that is the scenario I see. If it doesn't open up with large crowds, and we are going to have to put up with that. I went to Fight Camp 4. It was my first event for 5 months that I was at, locked down in the hotel there 5 days. And it was great to be there. It's different. You are in a bubble, and you really are in a bubble. Look what Top Rank did in Vegas. They did 40 days in the bubble with lots of events on ESPN. I mean, for me, they will have to fight behind closed doors eventually. They can't wait forever. And I think they'll feel that as well. If we're feeling it, they'll want to get back. And, they may just have to take a cut. But for me, I think at some point, these fights are going to have to go ahead, and they're going to have to earn less money, because the sport is going to have to carry on in the new world, in the new normal. So, we wish, we wait, we see, we watch, like you say, as the fuel is running out. And so eventually the planes are going to have to land. These fights are going to happen. And I think that will be by November, December. I really do. And I think they will go. They'll try and take it to another country where they can have an audience. We may go to Saudi. We may go to Australia. We may go to Bulgaria for Pulev and Joshua. It's got to happen. But before they do it behind closed doors, the promoters will look to put it in another country. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's got to be, and even that in itself, Gareth, is also another crazy thing as well, because we are living in a time where a country is open, but who knows if it might close tomorrow. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. People are getting stranded in so many different places up and down, all around the world, because Spain's in, then it's out, then Greece is in, then Greece is out, then Turks and Caicos is in, Turks and Caicos is out. It's that level of uncertainty is like,
well, imagine events booked in a certain country and there's a massive outbreak there and people have got to go over there. Loads of people have travelled. Are they going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks before and quarantine for 2 weeks afterwards? There's an event can be booked in a certain place and suddenly it's lockdown there. So the event gets washed out. There's so many variables at the moment that, it's just different to anything we've ever experienced before. And hopefully this chat, our chats, the Gaz and Dave show, the Dave and Gaz show, will be chats that people will enjoy, and we'll bring the variables. We'll bring the vagaries of what lockdown's been like, where we go from here, different sports. And we might even reveal a few things about what we've been up to. But that will come in time.
No doubt, Gareth. No doubt. Listen, this is literally just a taste of what's to come. Because honestly, and on top of that, obviously we're social distancing in a different place right now. But when we're back together, Gareth, listen, it's over for them. This show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to make some docus, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
Some documentaries with us out and about.
We got so much coming. All right. If people were a fly in the wall when me and Gareth were together, if you guys were a fly in the wall, you lot would be like, nah, this needs to be bottled up and sold on Netflix. You understand what I'm saying? This, honestly, just you wait. It's coming.
Yeah. From our Hollywood mansions that we stay in to our to all our adventures. Exactly. And this is the first of many.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, keep it tuned, keep it locked, and keep it plugged in to the Gaz and Dave show. Much more coming out soon.
Out.